Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I would like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of September 29th, 2021. In accordance with the Governor's Healthy Washington guidelines and in an effort to protect city employees and members of the public from transmission of COVID-19, the City Council is conducting our weekly council meeting remotely. We are prepared to reopen the council chambers to public meetings when public health considerations indicate it is safe to do so. There are several ways in which you can engage with the council and participate in our meetings. To watch or participate in our remote meetings, you may watch council meetings live on Comcast Channel 21 or Frontier Channel 29. You may watch live online at www.everettwa.gov/citycouncil, where you may also watch past meetings. You may call in to listen to the live meeting at any point by dialing 425-616-3920, conference ID 724-887-726#. You may find the public comment registration form on the City of Everett website under the City Council Department. Once you go to the Register Here to provide comment via Zoom link, you will need to fill the form out completely if you wish to provide public comment at a future meeting. After the public comment form is submitted, you will receive an email confirmation with the Zoom link and the phone number to the meeting. Participants must submit this form at least 30 minutes prior to the meeting. Forms submitted after that time will not receive the Zoom link and phone number to speak, but they may still participate the day of the meeting by submitting comments in writing to council@everettwa.gov. For assistance, please contact the council office at 425-257-8703 or email the council administrator, Deb Williams, at dwilliams@everettwa.gov. Please note that we do not allow comments on any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office. We also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. Outside of our meetings, members of the public are always welcome to contact council members or provide comments or concerns on any matter via email at council@everettwa.gov or by calling the City Council office at 425-257-8703. At this point, I would like to call on Councilmember Vogely to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, President Stonecipher. The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Shtahoksh people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. Councilmember Roberts, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now, Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin?
Here.
Councilmember Vogely?
Here.
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Murphy?
Excused.
Councilmember Roberts?
Here.
Councilmember Vader?
Here.
Councilmember Toohey? Councilmember Toohey? President Stonecipher?
Here. Thank you. And do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of September 22nd, 2021?
Councilmember Vader, so moves.
Do I hear a second?
Moore, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Moore?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Vader,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui, President Stonecipher.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Franklin.
Good evening, President Stonecipher. I apologize in advance because I'll be a little long-winded, but before I start with the budget message, I would like to invite Ryan Sass forward. I think last week, council members asked about the red light cameras, so I wanted him to provide a brief update. Ryan Sass?
Yeah, good evening. Ryan Sass, Public Works. I wanted to give a very brief update on our photo enforcement efforts. Our traffic team was hoping to bring you a fully actionable program for your consideration by the end of this month. Unfortunately, based on workload and some other personnel issues, we are not quite ready to do so. They're working diligently on that. They're going to need a little additional time to bring you a ready and actionable program. Remaining tasks include some internal coordination with IT, Municipal Court, and Everett Police Department, and the development and finalization of a procurement plan. We anticipate bringing you an actionable program by the end of October or early November.
Thank you, Ryan. And so I will start with my budget message, and let me pull it up here for you. So good evening, everybody. I'm pleased to present you with my proposed city budget for 2022. I'd like to start by acknowledging that these past couple of years leading our city while navigating a global pandemic have been extraordinarily challenging. I'm truly grateful to be doing this work together with all of you, our dedicated city council members, who I know care deeply and passionately about our residents, our businesses, and the health and well-being of our entire community. It's been a difficult time for all of us with a lot of darkness, uncertainty, fear, and frustration. Often it can be hard to look beyond the current crisis to see the bright future ahead and all of its possibilities. But a few weeks ago, I was reminded of those possibilities when I had the wonderful opportunity to meet with a company that's recently made its Everett its home. The company is called InFarm, and they're working to create a more sustainable food system by growing food close to cities, guided by the philosophy that your food shouldn't have traveled more than you. InFarm strives to grow food in a way that is more resilient, sustainable, and beneficial to our planet. They have built and are building amazing vertical farms that use less land, less water to grow very healthy organic produce right here in Everett. And this produce will be sold at grocery stores and served in restaurants throughout our area. It was inspiring to see this technology in action and hear about why they chose Everett for their US headquarters. InFarm is bringing opportunity, jobs, and a vision for a more sustainable world. And sampling their greens was not only delicious, but truly inspiring and gave me a lot of hope for our city, our planet, and our future. It's examples like this that exemplify what I love about Everett. We're innovative. We take care of each other, our environment, and our community. And we're driven by a vision for a better future. So it's with that premise of a better future that I'll now share some highlights of our 2022 budget. The budget I'm presenting is once again built on our foundation of quality of life priorities, which include housing, economic, workforce, and cultural vitality, an engaged and informed community, a safe community, transportation and infrastructure, a responsive and responsible government. So I'd like to clarify that today I'm focusing on the general government budget as well as our transportation and infrastructure budgets. I will not be talking about the American Rescue Plan funds this evening, as those are not part of our operational budget. We're excited about the one-time infusion of federal funds through the ARP funding and are currently putting together ideas of how we can invest those dollars to help address community challenges and help our community recover from the pandemic. We look forward to bringing recommendations to council for consideration very soon, within the next 4 weeks. So for tonight, I'll start with housing, and in particular, how we're addressing homelessness and the investments we're planning for next year. We have some excellent programs and partnerships in place, but I think as we've all seen, the pandemic has exacerbated the issues on our streets and the need we have for shelter and supportive services. To help bridge that need and aid our response, my budget funds a new homelessness response coordinator. This will be a full-time position which will work as part of our community development team to develop and coordinate strategies to alleviate chronic homelessness. We're also adding funds to expand our staff capacity to respond to and address encampments. This will bolster our ability to connect unsheltered residents with services through our community outreach and enforcement team, as well as our partners. It will also support a standalone encampment cleanup team in our streets department to ensure ongoing safety and sanitation for our businesses and our neighborhoods. The budget also includes funds to support planning, site preparation, and implementation of the council-approved additional 40 pallet shelters. We are still evaluating potential sites and hope to be able to make these shelters available as early as possible in 2022. In our work to address homelessness, our partnerships are of the utmost importance. We will direct as much of our limited resources as possible to this work, but it is absolutely necessary that we work closely with Snohomish County, as well as neighboring jurisdictions, nonprofits, faith-based communities, and others to ensure that together we provide care and support to those in need while increasing overall community health and safety. The city is expected to add more than 65,000 people in the next 2 decades. In order to accommodate our growing population, we must also continue to advocate for and support the development of new housing, from affordable housing to market rate housing to everything in between. This year, our planning team completed our Rethink Housing initiative, which culminated in a housing action plan with strategies for addressing the current and future housing needs for Everett residents to increase housing at all price points. I believe this will come back to City Council next week for adoption. Next year, in addition to rolling out our housing action plan, we'll commence with our comprehensive plan periodic update. This will be the first major review and update of the city's foundational planning document since 2015. The comp plan update process will include a robust public outreach component to help shape the vision for the future of our city and ensure the prosperity generated through this growth is shared broadly and equitably. Helping Everett get back on its financial feet and recover from the impact of the pandemic is clearly another top priority. Our approach includes supporting local businesses. During the pandemic, we've worked to create and share resources to aid businesses as they navigate the ever-changing conditions of COVID-19. We've developed toolkits to help them plan and adjust operations to align with the latest health guidance and requirements. We also awarded Everett Cares grants to support our local businesses and will continue to do everything we can to help our community recover. Our economic development strategy also aims to strengthen, expand, and diversify the businesses that call Everett home. Boeing and aerospace remain vital sources of jobs and the backbone of our economy. As travel restrictions are lifted and people discover they can safely go places again, the industry is slowly recovering, and I'm confident, and fortunately aerospace experts agree, that Boeing and our aerospace partners in the city will experience a rapid and lasting recovery within the next 5 years. The diversification of our economy remains a priority. The world is increasingly demanding more sustainable products and services, which is why we are committed to establishing Everett as the hub for the green economy. We're successfully recruiting companies like TerraPower, which is developing advanced nuclear energy. We also have Zap Energy and Helion Energy, both working to create commercial fusion power generators that electric utilities will buy to power our cities. We're pleased to be home to Seagen, a company that's developing transformative cancer medicines to heal one of the world's most deadly diseases and help people through treatment. And we're welcoming companies like Magnets, which is developing electric propulsion units for airplanes. I really believe these companies are going to change the world, and I'm excited to have them doing this world-changing work right here in Everett, providing our community with the outstanding family wage jobs that we need and keeping us in the center of innovation. I'm also excited to create a home for similar companies at Epic Green, which is our own Everett Point Industrial Center. The city owns much of this land, and it's an undeveloped industrial site, giving us a unique opportunity to shape its future development. Epic Green spans about 100 acres near the Riverside neighborhood, just northeast of intersection of I-5 and Highway 2. With patience and focus, Epic Green will be the green hub of the Northwest, and we're committed to attracting green businesses to this site, specifically those working to lower the world's carbon footprint. Everett is recognized worldwide for our advanced manufacturing workforce. Cultivating well-established pipelines into major industries and networks helps create a highly skilled, locally sourced, and dynamic workforce. And it is our priority to continue to forge partnerships with local vocational schools, the trades, apprenticeship programs, and others to strengthen our workforce pipelines and create future opportunities right here in Everett. We are thrilled that WSU Everett's recently launched Business Administration degree program is taking off, and we are working with partners like Northwest Innovation Resource Center and WSU to make Everett a national leader in data analytics. Opportunities in multiple sectors are booming in Everett. And thanks to our partnership with Economic Alliance of Snohomish County, Washington Economic Development Association, and the Greater Seattle Partners, Everett's influence is growing. Partnering with these organizations allows us to leverage our efforts and stretch our investments to successfully recruit and retain talent and attract family wage jobs that were once beyond our reach. An important part of economic and cultural vitality is celebrating and investing in things that make our city that much more beautiful, vibrant, and welcoming. We have amazing parks, a beautiful waterfront, a diverse range of delicious dining options, and an ever-growing craft beverage scene, unique shops and retail services, and a state-of-the-art regional airport. We want to showcase these assets through placemaking so that we can welcome more people and businesses to our beautiful city and ensure the highest quality of life for our residents. This includes maintaining and improving our over 900 acres of parks and recreational facilities, as well as hosting festivals, makers markets, and other events, and managing these activities in a way that stewards our resources while always aligning with current health guidelines and requirements. Next year, we'll continue updating our parks with plans to add new playgrounds at Howarth and Thornton A. Sullivan Parks, as well as continue work on a recreational trail around Silver Lake. We've budgeted for our most popular events, such as Sorticulture, Wintertide, the 4th of July, the Wentz Mayor's Arts Award as well. We'll also continue to partner with external organizations like the Downtown Everett Association, Everett Music Initiative, the Shack, the Village Theater, the Port of Everett, and others to support events like our Everett Farmers Market, Music at the Marina, Jetty Island Days, downtown festivals, and many more. This year's budget supports a thriving arts community. Art is a powerful form of expression, especially during our most challenging times. Art heals, allowing us to express emotions in ways that words alone cannot. And art can help a community thrive. So next year, we plan to bring more public art into the city. We're evaluating our current rotating art collection to bring in some new pieces, including some interactive sculptures, as well as an Indigenous piece to complement our council's recent action to add a land acknowledgement at our meetings. This piece will acknowledge the land on which Everett rests and the Indigenous peoples who first called this area home. The art piece will honor the sacred spiritual connection that our region's original inhabitants and their successors have with these lands and waters. And we'll continue to invest in our important cultural arts program. This program provides essential resources to local art organizations to expand arts education and programming throughout the city. If you've seen the new mural at Clark Park or visited Nubian Jam this year, then you've seen how these grants help bring art and events to life. This year, one of our cultural arts grants helped repair and provide instruments to kids in local public schools, empowering the next generation of artists in Everett. We're also working with our cultural arts commissioners on a public art project that will capture our shared experience of this pandemic. This artist-led project will invite the community to participate and will culminate in a new public art piece at the Evergreen Library. It's important for people to feel connected to their community, especially during a pandemic like this that has changed how we typically meet, socialize, gather, and connect. Our Everett Public Library in particular has excelled at helping people connect, and I've been impressed with the quality, caliber, and diversity of virtual programs we've added to keep people of all ages engaged and learning. Whether it's hearing from a local crime author, exploring native plants with an expert, or learning how to make Nanaimo bars, the library has offered something for everyone at a time we have all needed new ways to connect. My proposed budget adds a full-time fundraiser for the library to ensure the library's growth and sustainability now and into the future. We've learned from the success of having a full-time fundraiser at the animal shelter that this position will more than pay for itself, as well as bring new revenue, which we hope will go toward expanding operating hours and programming. Another way of connecting is through our neighborhoods. My budget adds resources back to support our Council of Neighborhoods and our neighborhood associations, as well as our boards and commissions, which are an important way for the community to engage with us as a city. We will continue our neighborhood mini grants program, and I look forward to continuing our great neighborhood partnerships throughout the city. Next, I'll touch on transportation and infrastructure. Starting with Everett Transit, our plan for 2022 will be thoughtfully restoring service to provide more connections, especially to new and growing business centers like the Riverside Business Park and the waterfront. We've added 10 new drivers, and through that we'll offer improved service on Evergreen Way, east of Broadway, as well as access to areas where riders can transfer to community transit and future light rail stations. We'll also continue working with community transit, as council requested, to expand upon and explore the concept of a unified system of transportation services. Our public works team works around the clock to ensure the safety, cleanliness, and efficiency of our roads and other facilities. We also manage our regional water supply, providing a safe and reliable supply of drinking water to meet current and future needs. One important project next year will be the replacement and upgrade of the emergency backup power generation system at our water filtration plant. The new generators will improve the plant's resiliency by providing more reliable and robust emergency power. Other priorities for 2022 include designing the California Street Bicycle Corridor, which will provide a regional bicycle link between our downtown and US Highway 2. And we'll also begin construction on the Edgewater Bridge replacement on Mukilteo Boulevard. The bridge has aged beyond its useful life and needs to be rebuilt to meet modern seismic safety standards. Construction will require closure of the bridge for roughly 12 months, which will be a challenge for everyone who lives or travels in the area. But all in all, this is an important investment in our transportation infrastructure and the safety of this neighborhood, reducing the risk of it being isolated in the event of a major earthquake. Keeping our city and everyone in it safe will always be a core priority. My proposed budget continues to support our public safety teams in Everett Fire, Police, Emergency Management, as well as our legal department and municipal courts. These teams have served on the front lines through the duration of this pandemic, along with all of their other responsibilities to keep our community safe, help those in need, and keep us prepared. My budget for police supports training, community policing programs, and the completion of our council-requested police department assessment. We're increasing funding for our community outreach and enforcement team and adding a social worker intern to our library and hopefully other areas to continue to expand resources to respond to the rising challenges of homelessness in our community. Other critical partners in public safety are our legal team and our municipal court. Our prosecutors work side by side with law enforcement, prosecuting crimes and supporting alternative pathways such as diversion and treatment. This year, this team has played an important role helping analyze new police reform legislation adopted in Olympia so we can update our policies and procedures accordingly. In 2022, our municipal court hopes to secure grant funding for a program to help people with substance use disorders who are involved in the criminal justice system. The goal is to reduce recidivism rates by providing assessments of defendants more quickly and helping them into treatment and services. We've seen how successful this type of approach can be with the court's mental health alternative program, MAP, which has reduced recidivism rates by more than 90% since the program's inception. My proposed budget also sustains funding for our fire and emergency management teams so they can continue to ensure our city is well-equipped, well-prepared, and well-trained to fulfill their mission of being here for us when we need them most. This includes funding to support an anti-bias training curriculum aligned with our diversity, equity, and inclusion objectives. I'm so grateful for the dedication and commitment of these public safety teams and thank each and every one of our police, fire, emergency management, legal, and municipal court team members for their service to our city. Public safety also includes our animals, and our Everett Animal Shelter continues to do great work to advance the safety, health, and well-being of our local furry friends and family. My budget includes adding hours for veterinary support staff. Our plan is to offer reduced cost vet services for income qualifying residents. Sadly, some people may have few options but to surrender a beloved pet when they are faced with unanticipated costs in veterinary care, or they may delay seeking care altogether. Our intent is to improve animal care and keep pets together with their family and out of our shelter. Next year, we'll also continue to build our program to provide spay-and-neuter services for other animal welfare organizations. This increases their adoption and transfer capacity and generates revenue for our shelter. The last category I'll highlight today is being a responsive and responsible government, which of course involves being a good steward of our city resources, pursuing cost and operational efficiencies, and seeking to continuously improve how we deliver services to our community. One of our teams that's especially good at identifying opportunities for efficiency and improvement is our IT team. This department continues to keep us ahead of the curve and ensure city departments are well supported with the latest tools and systems with an increased focus on cybersecurity. This year, we witnessed significant disruptions in critical infrastructure and data breaches nationwide. The increase in ransomware attacks is being felt by more and more organizations. So my proposed budget includes the deployment of new tools that will help manage our cybersecurity risk. Another part of being responsive and responsible is ensuring equity and access to city services. In recent years, I have focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion with the aim to diversify our workforce, connect with new community members, and make our government more accessible and address racism. In 2022, we'll continue working towards those goals and strengthening relationships with our Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color, as well as our LGBTQ community. My budget allocates funds for additional training opportunities for our staff, city leadership, and members of some of our boards and commissions on topics to help us identify and eliminate barriers to equity in the work we do for our city. Just a second. So now I'd like to touch briefly on fiscal responsibility. Last year, we introduced a new consumer-driven health plan, and we're already seeing impressive results. It's great when our employees rave about going to the doctor, and that's because we have something really special at Vera Whole Health. The team there works hard to keep our staff and our families healthy, and the program saves the city money. Our projections for next year's general government health benefit costs, all total, came in nearly $1 million less than the original forecast, due in part to the success of the new health plans. We're lowering the growth rate and the cost of health benefits, while at the same time providing access to quality healthcare for our employees. I'm pleased with the success of this program and the positive health outcomes it's creating for our staff. Another successful strategy in fiscal responsibility has been creating partnerships to help deliver important community services. Last year, we did a call for proposals seeking innovative partnerships to use park properties and city facilities for the community's benefit. The goal was to increase or improve recreation opportunities for the public, repurpose or recondition park assets, decrease costs to the city, and possibly generate additional revenue. That led to some partnerships that we're really excited about. Some of these include the management of our Carl Gibson Senior Center by Volunteers of America. We're thrilled to partner with VOA to restore programming at the center. The pandemic has been especially difficult for our seniors, and I know they've missed being able to connect and engage with others in our community. VOA will be a great partner. They have experience serving older adults, and their mission and values are aligned with what we want for the future of the center. In the first full year of the agreement, we'll save more than $280,000 over the cost of running the facility on our own. These savings will grow over the life of the 14-year contract. This is a win-win-win. The city saves money, VOA delivers on its mission, and seniors benefit from the restoration of services and being able to connect with each other again. Another happy partnership is with T&L Nursery, who is now leasing the greenhouses at Legion Park, keeping them in productive use while providing revenue to support our Parks Department. We're also pleased to have the YMCA as a partner in providing programming at Camp Patterson for kids in our Everett community. And those are just some examples, and we're eager to explore additional partnerships in 2022. Another way we'll improve efficiencies and reduce waste is by adding a full-time resource conservation manager to the city. This is a new position within our Parks and Facilities team. Their role will be to evaluate how we're using energy, water, and other natural resources and recommend opportunities for efficiency and conservation to not only achieve cost savings, but also ensure we are being good stewards of the environment. In the Pacific Northwest, we are fortunate to have such incredible natural surroundings. As a local government, it's important we do what we can to minimize our negative impacts on our environment, as well as find proactive ways to make it even better. This is especially critical given the climate change impacts we continue to experience year after year. This summer's heat wave broke records and made national headlines. We're also seeing more intense storms, longer and more dangerous wildfires, and other extreme weather events, all of which threaten the vitality, livability, and prosperity of our city. Last year, our council adopted a climate action plan to provide strategies for the city to be more green and reduce its carbon footprint. To help ensure we continue to make progress toward these sustainability goals, I'm redirecting a portion of an existing full-time employee to lead the coordination of this work, which spans many city departments. I'm proud of the fact that Everett Transit remains a regional leader in electrification, with plans for half of our fleet to be all electric by next year. Right now, our electric buses are reducing greenhouse gas pollution by almost 2 million pounds per year, and that will only increase as we take delivery of additional zero emission buses. Our climate action plan also includes land use strategies to support more compact, high-density communities well served by public transit, as well as improving overall walkability throughout the city. These strategies will be folded into our planning department's periodic update process. We look forward to reporting progress on our climate action plan and overall sustainability work in the coming months. So those are just some of the highlights of our budget that I wanted to share with you tonight, which support our quality of life priorities and investments. I'm very pleased we didn't have to make cuts to important services to balance the budget, as we've sadly needed to do in previous years. This is in part thanks to operational efficiencies, creative innovations, and strategic partnerships, which have helped us continue providing core services and beloved programs at significant savings. It's also in part due to unexpected savings, which are a result of the high number of vacant positions we've had. Like businesses everywhere, we're struggling to recruit enough qualified applicants to fill these open positions. Together, these factors allowed us to balance without cuts this year. But still, we are faced with the reality of a growing structural deficit and city revenues that are not keeping pace with the cost of delivering public services. The past few years, we've done everything we can to bring our budget into balance, including painful cuts to internal services and city teams, cuts to beloved programs, putting off maintenance of our buildings, vehicles, and equipment, and deferring payments toward long-term liabilities. There isn't anything left to cut or defer without negatively impacting our quality of life or our economic recovery. So we're now at a crossroads where we have to decide what kind of city we want Everett to be. To balance future budgets, we have to look at other options. We have not asked our community for additional resources to support general services like police, fire, parks, and the library since the 1% limit on property tax was enacted 20 years ago. I believe it's time to allow voters to weigh in on which services and at what level they are willing to support before we propose more cuts in future budgets. Everett residents should have a direct voice in these decisions. I look forward to working with you, our city council, as well as engaging our community over the coming year to determine the best options to pursue in order to put the city's finances on a long-lasting, sustainable path. Before I close, I'd like to acknowledge what a significant undertaking it is to put together a city budget and make sure it balances. It takes literally months of behind-the-scenes work of our city staff. And we have a pretty amazing finance department. So I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone who rolled up their sleeves and contributed to building this balanced, fiscally responsible budget, with a special thanks to Susie Hagan, Rayanne Nielsen, Wei Poon, and Yi Lu. Thank you. I'm proud and pleased with our proposed 2022 budget. It supports housing, economic growth, public safety, transportation and infrastructure, and even begins to tackle important issues like climate change, homelessness, and equity. Everett is on a strong path forward, and it's an honor to serve our residents together with you, our city council, and together take care of our beautiful Everett community. Thank you. And with that, no further comments tonight. Thank you, President Stonecipher and council members.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that budget address. I'm sure I can speak for all council. We look forward to working with you to pass our balanced budget as we do every year. With that, we will move to our council comments and liaison reports, and we're starting tonight with Councilmember Vogely.
I don't have any comments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that very thorough budget address. And I just want to make a couple of comments on how much I appreciate the transparency. Not only are we emphasizing what we're able to do, but you're also, and we are also emphasizing what our challenges are ahead. And I have to maybe pause for a moment and saying, when I ran for office in 2009, it was really about my passion for the vision for Everett. It was really about, as an architect, about what can happen and about this amazing opportunity on a place in our state and our place in our world where we're surrounded by mountains, rivers, the Puget Sound, lakes, vistas, but also kind of about where we're situated, north of Seattle, with Payne Field and commercial areas come in. I'm sorry, this is not my exit address, but when I hear and listen to what we're facing, it's the same thing we faced in 2010. It's a structural deficit that was put in place by I-747 back in 2002, I think. And we continue to survive. We continue to make things happen. And I have to compliment my colleagues, my predecessors, those who have walked this journey. And you brought that up at the end, but I want to start with that because I think what we need to emphasize is what has been accomplished under the former Mayor Stephenson. Most difficult decisions, that time period, it just seemed to emerge where our economy is recovering, and he held the ship in strong stead, and we were in the best place when you took office. And then we have a pandemic. And so I just want to reemphasize that you've taken that torch and you've carried it forward. All my respect to Mayor Stephenson and all that we did through that era of his amazing reign. But hats off to you in terms of a budget where you're emphasizing the opportunity. But until we address that underlying structural deficit, it's something we need to face. And the fact that we need to, and we've talked about it, when we recover from this moment in time this year, consider about basically what we're saying is we're coming to a point in time that after these federal resources that have occurred, after these vacancies, unfortunately, due to people that were impacted by their income were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, we have these savings that are carrying us forward without covering services. But I say to you as citizens who are listening tonight, at some point in the time, we have to step up to the ballot box and we have to write a check to keep things going unless we convince our state legislature to change the state funding mechanism on property tax. Flat out. So that's my constant mantra. And I think if you look back to 2010, I've mentioned that every year before it was a popular statement that I-747 is choking the public services that we all expect and want. But when it comes to what we have been able to do and what it has forced us to do, I think of two things. I think of creativity. I mean, these public-private partnerships that are happening maybe a little bit under duress, but they're very positive, and that's the way we need to go. And so while I listen through my moderate political vision, I listen to that. Yes, we do need to help all those who are in need. I do expect that and hope for stronger public policy for those who are on our streets that are taking advantage of it, stricter constraints. But I do want to say that if you listen to it with a Republican or a Democratic perspective, you're hearing a really good balance. You're hearing that we need to help those people, but we also need to be fiscal conservatives. And we can't do that as a city. So the only way that that can happen is through public-private partnerships. So while I didn't mean for this to be an equal address to you, I'm sort of missing the fact that I won't be here for the ride after December 31st. And I want to look forward to say, I'm here to support the city here, now, and later. But please know that I think that as we walk through the year, we're effectively using the federal relief dollars, and that through vacancies is buying us time. But citizens, please be aware, we need to step up at some point in time and collectively make our city better through what might possibly be either a legislative action at the state or something that we have to consider locally. Do we want this, and will we pay for it? So, Mayor, thank you for that opening address. Colleagues, thanks for letting me sort of ramble on, but it's a really strong belief set. And my vision for Everett, seeing what's going on the riverside, seeing the development up in the industrial areas, seeing the vision, and my compliments to the port for what we are seeing going on down there. I'm excited for the future. And just thank you for letting me ramble on.
Thank you. And we will move to Councilmember Roberts.
Thanks, President Stonecipher, and Mayor, thank you for that address. Very much look forward to working with you in implementing this budget. And I really do appreciate the emphasis on housing and on climate and on a green economy. We really do have some wonderful opportunities. You have emphasize those in your address, and I really appreciate that. The community may not fully appreciate that this is the largest manufacturing center in the state of Washington, and we have a workforce that's second to none, with a higher ed system now that's capable of really supporting it. And all of those things were in your address, as well as working on the housing piece. So thank you for that. Look forward to working with you on that. A couple of other matters, and some of it related, is that let me just say that I had an opportunity to visit with the planning department and talking about Rethink Housing. I will have something in writing for my colleagues before next week, but I will just tell you in summary, I'm very excited about going through the Rethink Housing proposal and seeing that implemented going forward, assuming that the council approves it, and it is up for next week, for an action next week. I would also say that there is and I know it's on a very tight time frame, a housing action plan implementation grant that the staff is working with to submit to Commerce.
it's on a very tight time frame, and I believe they intend to bring it forward for an action. So I'm, by my comments, raising it to alert my colleagues that it is coming. It's on a fast track, and to meet the deadlines, we will have to take some action to approve it, I believe, next week. So just stand by. Secondly, or thirdly, as it were, I did provide an email to the council regarding the home occupation and suggesting some amendments that could be prepared before it comes forward. But I also do want to call out in that regard, making sure that home occupation daycare centers are authorized, because that's such a critical piece for keeping our employment base solid, and in particular making sure that women have access to the employment base, as they are disproportionately burdened with childcare. That issue is a real critical piece of infrastructure for our workforce. And then I did get a chance to visit and tour with Boeing and Alaska Airlines, their decarbonization system. And it's pretty exciting, the work that they're doing. And last but not least, the domestic violence program has opened up their secondhand store on 3010 Grand Avenue. So all good, and thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you. And we will move next to Councilmember Vader.
Thank you, Council President Stonecipher. Mayor, thanks for that budget address. I think it's a good reminder every year of all the things our municipal corporation does day to day and day in and day out, and the potential to do other things for Everett residents and Everett businesses. It takes a lot of hard work, obviously, on the part of our staff and city staff and involved Everett residents and businesses, but still exciting to see the potential, but also very important for us to know about all the things we do just day in and day out as a municipal corporation. Real quick liaison report here, the animal shelter, and I shared this with my council colleagues via email. Metrics at year-to-date performance measures. A lot of things are returning to normal after last year's changes during the pandemic. There, at least a lot of the metric numbers are. The animal intake numbers are cropping up back to normal, for better or worse. Number of spay-neuter surgeries actually ahead of normal. The daily shelter population has crept back up. Number of animal control cases is probably going to be ahead of even the pandemic, regrettably. Number of pet licenses is coming back up as well. And also, gratefully, the charitable fundraising there, as you mentioned earlier, Mayor, is happening, but better than ever now. So some good metrics there. Wanted to give a shout out and a thank you, Mayor, to your staff and those who are involved in the encampment response team. Since that really got going here in the last couple of weeks, I think our residents have noticed some visible changes to encampments here. And so grateful for all the work that your staff does. And I know that's really hard work, whether it's law enforcement or co-ed team or what have you. Grateful for that. And then finally, I just happened to notice a couple things on social media that I want to make sure that we're noticed and grateful for here as well. I noticed on Nextdoor that Everett Fire Emergency Management posted recently Everett Fire calls for service for a typical 12-hour period earlier this week, and just very revealing to see what was involved there. If you're on Nextdoor and haven't seen that, I think you look under Everett Fire Emergency Management there. So thanks for posting that info. And then also heard over social media about incident involving a stolen vehicle in Everett, and our officers' inability to stop that vehicle or pull that over, and later finding out I think that was involved in an armed robbery. So just the impact of some recent legislative changes. But again, I think on social media, that information being shared, and encourage our obviously social media also can have some stuff that isn't correct or accurate, but do appreciate when we as a city can get good and accurate information out there to make sure our citizens and residents and businesses know what's going on. Again, my apologies, like my fellow council members, for rambling on, but thanks and appreciate listening.
Thank you. And we'll go to Councilmember Tui.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, I figured it out. Well, thank you for the budget report. It certainly was, for me, it was great to hear the interest and focus on parks and the arts, and hopefully we will see that come to fruition. I was able to attend the Council of Neighborhoods this week, which is always a great thing. And I wanted to give a shout out to Everett Community College, who is forgiving $1.2 million worth of student debt, which was incurred during the pandemic, which affects 3,000 other students. I think that is just tremendous. That's what we need to have happen in a lot of different ways, with either rents or mortgages or debt, as in this case. Thank you, Everett Community College, for really stepping up on that. I think it's awesome. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. And I don't have much to report, but I appreciate all the great news that we heard in the mayor's budget address. I look forward to seeing how some of those some of the new positions will be structured, and how we can support some of the existing programs that we have. I also wanted to remind our community, I happen to be knowledgeable about the state of our local hospital with response to the COVID caseload. And I know that as of late last night, there were 27 people in the hospital that were waiting for a hospital bed to be admitted to, a room, including some people who needed ICU services and were not able to get them because of the high demand. And the hospital was forced to postpone all elective cases for today. I am reminding our community once again, if you are not vaccinated, this stuff is real. People are getting ill. People are dying in our community who are unvaccinated. 99% of the people in the hospital at this time are unvaccinated individuals. And they are impacting not only themselves, but also the rest of the community, because if someone has a heart attack, if someone has another life-threatening condition, the hospital is so overrun that it's difficult for them to care for you. So everyone, please stay safe. If you are not vaccinated, please get vaccinated and help keep our community safe. That's all I have. And Councilmember Vogely had her hand up, so I will return back to her.
Thank you. I very much appreciate it. I hate going first because I often forget, like, oh, there's things to say. So thank you, Mayor, for that budget address, first and foremost. And I didn't realize that we could say all sorts of things about it. I thought it was just regular liaison comment time. So I wrote down a lot of notes, and I imagine we're going to get to talk about them specifically when we discuss the budget. But I am, the first thing I wrote down is when you said highest quality of life, and that can probably mean so much to so many different people. And I'm thinking no traffic. So I just want to put that out there to the people watching and listening, that how do we get no traffic? Just start thinking about it. That's all. Just think about it. I'm not going to give you any answers yet. And then, of course, Councilman Roberts reminded me about the Housing Action Plan, which I have not forgotten about. But I was able to go to a forum, and now I can't remember with whom, but they had Renton and Puyallup, Sumner, no, Bonnie Lake and Sumner. Anyways, various jurisdictions that have already passed their housing action plans, some of the things that they have learned already by passing those housing plans. And then I also have quite a few links for either my colleagues to look at other jurisdictions' housing action plans and see what they're like. So I can send those links out to Deb to get to everybody. And I just wanted people to know that people are doing it everywhere, and there's actually more grants coming up. I think Nick Harper told us about that a couple weeks ago. So I will do that. And President Stonecipher, I just want to thank you immensely for talking about the pandemic and the ICU and the need for people to get vaccinated. So thank you very much. And sort of that's all I have to say. Thank you for letting me go again.
Thank you. And we will move now to find out if there's anything to report from administration.
Thank you, Council President Stonecipher. Nick Harper. Nothing additional to report other than, since it's been mentioned twice, yes, next Wednesday, the 6th, our planning director, Yorick, and his team will come back with a briefing on the commerce grant related to the housing action plan. No other comment.
Very good. Thank you. We'll move on to city attorney comments, and we have Ms. Diaz with us this evening. Do you have anything for us tonight?
Thank you. No comment and no executive session.
Thank you. Deb Williams, have we received any comments from the community for public comment tonight?
Good evening, President Stonecipher. We have no written comment, but we do have one community member wishing to speak. Mr. Heathcock, please begin by giving your name and your residence for the record. Please remember to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Heathcock. Mr. Heathcock, you're still muted. Please unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. My thing had to reset there. So I have noticed that the trash in our streets has gotten out of hand. Is there any plan to fix that?
Mr. Heathcock, just go ahead with your comments and we will have somebody respond back to you afterwards, okay?
Okay. That's pretty much it. Like I said, there's just the garbage situation here in Everett has gotten out of hand. Everywhere I walk, there's garbage everywhere. I've went around and talked to people about it, and a lot of the people in the city agree that it's gotten out of hand. So that's my only comment.
Thank you very much for your comments. I do have your information, so I will have somebody contact you in return. President Stonecipher, those are all I have waiting to speak this evening.
Thank you. You know, I would like to comment on Mr. Heathcock's concern about garbage. I too have actually noticed that we have an increase in garbage in our community. And I would like to talk to administration about possibly doing a community effort to clean up some garbage. And one thought that I had on that was that it's possible that we could energize the neighborhood associations to distribute special bags or something that would allow residents to clean up in their kind of their vicinity. And then maybe we could have some kind of special cleanup. Perhaps we could, or a pickup that we could maybe, I don't know, I'm brainstorming, but possibly figure out how we could get those bags picked up if we had a specific time frame for such a cleanup effort. But I too have noticed that there's a lot more garbage being thrown around. So people, please remember that we all live in this community, pick up your garbage, and would love to chat with our administration and brainstorm some ideas to come back with that could possibly help alleviate this problem. I do think that it's an issue that we can all work on together. I don't think this needs to be sort of a centralized government response, but perhaps some coordination on our part would be helpful. So anyway, I will work with administration on that, and hopefully we'll come up with something to alleviate that growing issue in our community. With that, let's see, where are we on our agenda here? We are moving on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the 4 consent items?
Councilmember Vader, so moves.
Roberts, second.
We have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Moore,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Vader,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. We have 4 items that are on our proposed action agenda, and I'm going to read item number 5 as it's a first reading, and I'd like to read it into the record. Number 5 is Council Bill 2109-36, first reading. Adopt the proposed ordinance vacating a portion of Summit Avenue lying between 26th Street and the east-west alleys located south of 2601 Summit Avenue and 2614 Summit Avenue, together with that portion of the east-west alley abutting 2601 Summit Avenue. The third and final reading of this will be on October 13th of 2021. Do I have any questions from the council on any 4 of the proposed action items? If so, please unmute yourself and make yourself known.
Liz Vogely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councilmember
I'll make sure
Vogely.
nobody else. I just am thankful for the vacation of the Summit Avenue area for the Evergreen Recovery Center. That is all.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question on the 4 proposed action items? Hearing none, we'll move on to our action item. Item 9 is Council Bill 2109-32, third and final reading. Adopt the proposed ordinance repealing ordinance number 3643-18 regarding reusable bags. Do I hear a motion?
Roberts, so moves.
Second?
Who makes the second?
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Deb Williams, do we have anyone signed up to speak on this item?
President Stonecipher, we do not.
Thank you. We'll go down the roll to see if we have any questions or discussion before we take the vote, starting with Councilmember Vogely.
Just a reminder that people worked really, really hard to make this happen in Everett, and it's happening throughout the state. So hooray.
Thank you. Councilmember
Thank you.
Moore.
No comments. And thank you for the presentation or the.
Thank you. Councilmember Roberts.
Thank you. I just would briefly comment again, and Councilmember Vogely touched on it. We had a lot of folks who were really active in bringing this to Everett. We took action. I had an opportunity to be in a meeting with Heather Trim, of Zero Waste Washington, and she pointed out that one of the critical tipping points was having the city of Everett and other cities, but the city of Everett get on board with this, and it really helped move the action at the state level. So I just want to compliment the people who helped bring this together and bring it to our attention, and then we took action on it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Vader.
I just want to point out for those who might be listening that our ban would have gone back in effect, I think, after the pandemic. And the reason for this action is to put ourselves in conformance with the state of Washington's law passed for this. So this, just for anybody listening, that's the reason for our action. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone who worked hard for our ordinance, and it's nice that Everett had a little bit of influence in Olympia. So thank you for that information, Paul. That's all I have.
Thank you, and I have nothing to add to this. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Moore,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Vader,
Yes.
Councilmember Toohey,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. We'll move on to the council briefing agenda. These items come before the city council serving as a council committee of the whole and are likely to be scheduled at a future meeting. Item 10 is the revenue and expenditure briefing and public hearing for the 2022 proposed operating budget. And I believe Susie Haugen is here to start us off. I'm sure she's got her whole team here as well. Good evening,
Yes.
Susie.
Thank you very much. If you'll bear with me for just a moment, I will share my screen, and that appears to be working. So here we go. So tonight we'll start with a review of the citywide revenues and expenditures in the proposed 2022 budget, and then drill down to the general government's revenues and expenditures. Next, we'll go over the final balancing list and then finish up with the general government 6-year forecast. So the proposed 2022 citywide revenue budget is $449.4 million, which is an 11.8% increase from the 2021 original budget. The change is due primarily to the influx of American Rescue Plan funding, plus contributions from growth in charges for services and taxes. The bar chart on this slide shows the amount of each revenue type in the forecast, and each revenue type is divided by general government and non-general government sources. General government is in blue and non-general government is in green. The general government includes core services like police, fire, parks, library, and streets. Non-general government services include Everett's water and sewer utility, transit, golf, and internal services like vehicle maintenance and insurance. Charges for services and taxes make up the majority of citywide revenues. Notably, you can see that the non-general government services are supported primarily by charges for services, and general government services are supported primarily by taxes. Service fees and taxes together make up 68% of total revenue. The largest component of service fees is water and sewer rates, which account for $101.7 million or 65% of this revenue category. The largest component of taxes on a citywide basis is sales tax, which accounts for 40% of the total. Transit and the general fund are the two main recipients of sales tax. Debt proceeds of $45 million are anticipated from a water and sewer revenue bond issue that is planned for next year. Grants and other federal revenue consists of the previously noted American Rescue Plan funding for both the general government and transit, federal and state grants, community development block grants, the CHIP program, and other confirmed grants. Miscellaneous revenue includes interest earnings, surplus proceeds, internal payments for health benefits and liability insurance, facility rentals, donations, and general miscellaneous items. The total for 2022 is $26.7 million. Transfers at $25.7 million represent internal movement of resources between funds rather than new money coming into the city, and includes items like the cost allocation program. Intergovernmental revenue includes state shared revenue and ground emergency medical, medical transport reimbursements from the federal government. The total estimate for 2022 is $8.6 million. Licenses and permits are budgeted at $4.4 million and fines and forfeits at $1.1 million. The two charts on this slide illustrate the proposed expenditure budget distribution by priority. The slide on the left is a citywide budget, which includes both the general government and non-general government, and the chart on the right shows only general government proposed expenditures. The total proposed citywide budget for 2022 is $446.5 million. This is a 7.4% increase from the original 2021 citywide budget. The total proposed general government budget is $155.3 million, which is a 12.7% increase from the original 2021 general government budget. The increase in the citywide expenditure forecast is due primarily to the restoration of transit services, the restoration of left one pension contributions, plus an additional proposed catch-up provision, increased contributions to CIP1, mobile data computer replacement and firing range improvements, utilities maintenance, and contractual labor increases. As we compare the two charts, it's interesting to note that the dominant category in the citywide expenditure budget is transportation and infrastructure at $221 million, or roughly 50% of the total, while the largest priority category in the general government only chart is public safety. I'll focus on the citywide proposed expenditures for the remainder of this slide and provide additional detail on the general government proposed expenditures on a later slide. The reason why the transportation and infrastructure priority makes up such a large share from a citywide perspective is that because this is where the water and sewer utility is allocated. The utility, with a proposed 2022 budget of $160 million, represents 72% of the transportation and infrastructure priority and 36% of the budget overall. The cost of operating the regional utility dwarfs the cost of other services, which makes sense when you look at it in terms of scale. As a regional provider, the utility serves a population that is about 6 times the population of the city of Everett. The next priority in order of magnitude citywide is Safe Community at $114.8 million, or 26% of the total citywide budget. As you would expect, police, fire, and EMS activities support this priority. Together, they make up over $78.4 million, or 68% of this priority. Following Safe Community, we have Responsive and Responsible Government at $69.3 million, or 15.5% on a citywide basis. Council administration, non-departmental costs, and support departments such as legal, HR, IT, finance, and facilities support this priority. Next is economic and cultural vitality at $31.1 million, or 7%. Parks, economic development, event center debt support, municipal arts, and the Everett Performing Arts Center and permit services all support the economic and cultural vitality priority. Then we have engaged and informed community at $6.7 million, or 1.5%. Community development, communications, and the library activities support the engaged and informed community priority. Housing follows at $3.6 million, or 1% of the total, and includes the CHIP and the CDBG programs and a portion of community development. Next, we'll drill down to just the general government budget. This chart illustrates the city's dependent on taxes to fund the delivery of basic public services. Taxes provide $110.9 million, or 79% of total funding for the general government operations. Miscellaneous revenues, which include interest earning, rents, donations, and transfers, are forecast at $8.3 million for 2022. State revenues, which include items like gas tax, liquor excise tax, and tax on marijuana, come in at $5.6 million. Charges for goods and services and interfund charges together are $9.9 million. Permits, licenses, and franchise fees are $3.9 million, and fines and forfeits are $1.2 million. This next chart brings back the proposed general government expenditure budget from the citywide slide, with the business type services such as transit and the water and sewer utility removed. The Safe Community priority rises to the top with $86.8 million, or 56% of the total general government budget. Safe Community includes police, fire, the courts, prosecutor's office, indigent defense, and left one pension contributions. Responsive and Responsible Government comes in second with $31.6 million and includes council, administration, and internal service departments like HR, IT, finance, and facilities. Economic and Cultural Vitality follows third at $16.9 million and includes economic development, permit services, parks, library, municipal arts and the conference center. Transportation and infrastructure comes in fourth at $14.3 million, followed by engaged and informed community with $4.7 million and housing at $1 million. Now we're going to move into the general government revenue 6-year forecast. We'll start with the 4 largest revenues: property tax, sales tax, B&O tax, and utility taxes. Property tax is the general government's largest single funding source. The 2022 budget includes the 1% increase allowed by state law, which totals $387,000 plus an estimated $221,000 from assessed value of new construction. I'll be providing examples and additional information at the briefing for the annual property tax ordinance in October. Sales tax is the second largest source of general government revenue. For 2022, we are forecasting a 2.8% increase from the 2021 revised forecast and a 17% or $4.7 million increase over the 2021 original budget. Sales tax receipts have significantly exceeded the original forecast this year, and we now expect to even exceed our prior peak, which occurred in 2019 before the onset of the pandemic and economic shutdown. The forecast growth rate for the next 5 years averages about 1.9% per year. B&O tax comes in at number 3. B&O tax has been hit hard by the pandemic, and this forecast is dominated by what is happening in aerospace. We have talked about how travel restrictions are impacting the U.S. airlines industry. As a result of the pandemic, airline losses in the first half of 2020 were unprecedented. In addition, Boeing moved all production of the 787 to South Carolina, and the delivery of the first 777X will be delayed, perhaps until 2024. All of this means that we will have a few more tough years ahead before we see meaningful recovery in this revenue source. Utility tax is the fourth largest revenue source for the general government. Utility tax is one of the most difficult to forecast due to impacts from factors such as weather, changes in technology, consumer behavior. Utility tax receipts have been underperforming for the past few years. Based on recent activity and the risk factors previously mentioned, we lowered the 2022 forecast by 5.4% over the 2021 budget to once again attempt to reset that base. From there, future years are forecast to grow by an average of 1.5% based on assumptions for population growth and rate increases. All other revenues include other taxes, licenses and permits, grants, state revenues, interfund charges, charges for services, fines, and miscellaneous revenues. Together, the 2022 forecast for these revenues total $37.7 million, and the average growth rate forecast over this period is 1.2%. Now I'll finish tonight's presentation with a look at the balancing list and 6-year forecast. We'll start with a summary view of where we began the process and how we came to a balanced budget for 2022. Looking back to December of 2020, we began with a $12 million deficit forecast for 2022, which was projected to grow to $26.5 million by 2027. We then add the $15.5 million of 2020 budget variance, which results in a positive balance of $3.6 million in 2022 with no impact to future years. Now we'll go through the changes that went into the revised forecast as a result of the budget development process. We've already discussed the items highlighted in gray at previous briefings, so I'll be focusing on just those new items. The first new item is the revised sales tax forecast. We increased the forecast significantly based on trends that began developing late last year. When we are seeing positive activity across many industry sectors, there's been particular strength in wholesale and retail. Within retail, nearly every category is exceeding the original 2021 forecast this year as the economy recovers and Everett recaptures some of its lost tax base through growth in online sales. Next, we have the revised B&O tax forecast. Although it looks like we will exceed the prior forecast in 2022, we had to further reduce 2023 and 24 due to developing information relating to aerospace. We have an increase in 2023 and 2024 in transfers from the Transportation Improvement Fund. As you recall, an initiative that would have eliminated the $20 car tab fee was challenged through a lawsuit. While the initiative was in the court system, the city continued to receive car tab fees, which accumulated in the Transportation Improvement Fund. Now that the courts have decided in favor of upholding car tab fees, we can allocate the accumulated resources to the Street Improvement Fund to support overlay and improvement projects. We had found an error in the roll forward of our 6-year forecast model that overstated the fines and forfeits revenue projection in 2027. This has now been corrected. And then the sum of all other revenue changes nets to $39,000 in 2022 and $59,000 in 2023. For expenditures, we start with jail fees and an ongoing forecast reduction of $4 million. As noted in an earlier briefing memo, this long-term forecast revision is due to recent Supreme Court rulings and legislative changes that are having a significant impact on the level of jail activity. Until those changes are reversed in the future, we expect that the current trend will continue. Next, we have the sum of all labor forecast changes, including COLA coming in higher than the prior forecast due to a surge in inflation that caused the June to June CPI to climb higher than expected. We have savings from the success of the new health benefit programs and increased employee cost share and legacy plans, and the restoration and reorganization of certain staff positions that had been eliminated last year. As the city reopened and services began to return to more normal levels last spring, it became evident that the cuts made in 2020 had been too deep in a few areas to allow for effective service delivery. Impacted departments include the library, human resources, prosecutor's office, administration, parks, community development, and streets. The net change is an increase of $400,000 to the expenditure forecast. We also had the final cleanup of the labor concessions contingency that was included in the 2021 budget, but not fully realized. This increased expenditures by $500,000 per year over the 6-year period. We increased the vacancy assumption from 28 to 35. The vacancy assumption takes into account the span of time needed to complete the hiring process between when positions become open and when a new employee is brought aboard. The actual average number of vacancies over the past several years is around 38. However, that average had been impacted to some extent by 2 VSP programs through which positions were intentionally held open for at least 6 months. This change represents an expenditure reduction of $745,000 in 2022 and $775,000 in 2023. The next 2 items are connected. The U.S. Forest Service will be leaving the municipal building by April of next year in order to make space for utility and engineering staff. This will create a temporary loss of lease revenue while the space is being remodeled and a couple of major core building deficiencies are corrected. At this time, the general government does not have sufficient resources in CIP1 to complete the core building work needed, particularly the HVAC replacement. In order to cover the full cost of those items, we will be proposing that the general government receive an interfund loan from utilities, which will be paid back through free rent. We estimate the payback period to be between 7 and 8 years based on current assumptions. Once the interfund loan is paid, having the building fully occupied plus eliminating rent that is currently paid to utilities for space at the service center will net an estimated $500,000 in additional resources per year for the general government. Next, we have the changes to the senior center budget to recognize the VOA contract exchange for the direct operating costs that were previously in the forecast. The net change is an increase in costs for the first 2 years and growing savings in the years thereafter. The forecast change to the cost allocation plan for services purchased by the general government starts with a reduction in cost of $248,000 in 2022 and $152,000 in 2023, and then becomes an increase in cost forecast for the years 2024 through 2027. Insurance is the primary driver for this shift. Due to better than expected performance, the balances in the workers' compensation, unemployment, and tort liability funds have grown beyond their target amounts. The revised forecast reduces contributions in 2022 and 2023 to consume those excess balances. And finally, all other expenditure changes net to a $277,000 savings in 2022 and $219,000 in 2023. The total change in expenditure forecast is a $2.3 million reduction in 2022 and $2.4 million in 2023. The subtotal of the annual balance in 2022 after all forecast changes is a positive $7.5 million, which is available to allocate to other uses. The primary reasons for the excess resources is the large budget variance brought forward from 2020, the $3.3 million increase to the sales tax forecast, and the $4 million decrease in the jail budget as noted earlier in the briefing. The proposed budget recommends using $2.8 million of that amount to complete the restoration of the 2021 LEF 1 police and fire pension contribution to get us back on track for the 2030 funding target. The remaining $4.7 million will go to CIP 1 to provide much needed resources to help address the years of deferred maintenance and deficiencies in facilities maintenance that were identified in the Ming report. We are, however, still looking at a $13 million deficit for 2023. At the start of the budget process this year, we committed to creating a plan to resolve both the 2022 and 2023 projected deficits in order to lengthen the runway for making difficult and important decisions about service levels and implementation of major initiatives, like creating a regional fire authority or seeking a property tax levy lid lift. Part of the process was to include an assumption for prior year budget variances to recognize that while they can vary substantially in size, we typically end up with some amount to carry forward to the following year. The $5 million per year added to this calculation represents an average of budget variances over the past 5 years. With the budget variance assumption included, we still have a deficit for 2023 of nearly $8 million. At this point, no further funding reductions are possible without cutting service levels, which would negatively impact the quality of life in Everett and could also slow our economic recovery from the pandemic. To resolve the remaining 2023 deficit, we have entered a placeholder for a voter-approved revenue initiative, which the Mayor Franklin noted in her budget message earlier this evening. Please keep in mind that the placeholder amount is just intended to provide an example of what would be needed to balance the 2023 budget under the current forecast. As you can see, we could resolve the projected shortfall in 23 with an $8 million voter-approved revenue increase. But with an increase that only covers the 2023 shortfall, deficits return in 2024 and continue to grow thereafter. The key takeaway here is that as long as the 1% limit on property tax growth is in place, it's unlikely that the structural deficit will be resolved over the long term without further service reductions or seeking voter-approved revenue increases every few years. With that said, we have a few recommendations. First, acknowledge that the past practice of deferring maintenance and contributions to long-term liabilities is not sustainable, and that the progressive erosion of public services each year to cut costs is not in the best interest of the community. Second, it needs to be clearly understood that without intervention, future deficits will persist as long as property tax, which represents a significant portion of our revenue base, is restricted to a 1% growth rate, which is lower than the rate of inflation. And it really isn't reasonable to expect that the city can hold down the cost of delivering public services to a rate that is lower than inflation. And third, going forward, the city will need to periodically seek voter approval for revenue increases in order to forge a more sustainable path. We'll be putting together a timeline and planning document that identifies tasks and milestones for getting a ballot measure before voters next year. And I'll close with a line chart showing a comparison of the deficit forecast as of December 15th, 2020 with the revised forecast as of September 29th, 2021. As you can see, we closed the gap for 2022, but only made modest progress in the out years. As previously noted, given the deep cuts that have occurred over the past few years, there are no options remaining to reduce funding in a way that will not impact our public-facing services. Community support of one or more revenue options will be needed to avoid cutting services in future budgets. And with that, I will turn it back over to President Stonecipher, and I've concluded the briefing for tonight. Happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you, Susie. And we will go down the roll to see what council member questions are, starting with Councilmember Vogely.
Well, I think I'm going first. I've written a couple of things down. Thank you, Susie. That's great, especially that last line. It's like this wonderful slide isn't fun at all. I'm going to start with a couple of questions that I have not asked you already, so I don't expect that you will have an answer right now. So 56% of the general government expenditure budget is for public safety, the first responders, essentially police, fire, left one pensions, prosecutors, court, etc. Is it possible to find out what the law enforcement budget part is of that 56%, and then even further, what the COET and the social work and that type of law enforcement piece is, what percentage that is of both of them, of the entire 56% and of just the law enforcement part of it. That would be interesting, and I would like that. So I don't expect that answer right now.
Okay.
And I keep coming back in my brain to the jail budget and where crime has, what exactly crime has been since the beginning of our nation and continually moving forward in our nation and city. And since things continually change and crimes become different or not crimes anymore, and there are other options than jail, the jail budget expenditure may continue to go down, which is yay. But we need to be able to use that money towards, let's say, housing and services and COET type social infrastructure. So that's not necessarily a question, I guess, but my mind is going towards using the jail budget for something good, for a relief for our residents. You know, that's as far as I'll go with that line. And let's see, I wrote, okay. And then another kind of open question is about property tax. I know it's at the 1%, and I know that, I mean, you've stated it, you know, quite well, that if that doesn't change, then we're going nowhere, or at least backwards. And I know also that property values, I mean, whether they're going up or not, which they are, they're also, that is difficult for a lot of homeowners in our city and really everywhere. So I don't know. I think I want to put it out there out loud, because what if, and I don't have any answers yet, you know, is property value such a wonderful thing? Because we're not getting any money from it as a city. And B, people are having a hard time keeping up with what they, even if it's just 1%, what they have to pay for. So how can we maneuver the property values so that both parties are benefiting? Because neither one of us is benefiting right now, because nobody can sell their house. Okay, not a lot of people can sell their house and move into a better one in the city, et cetera, et cetera. So just thinking about something different in property taxes. And then I had asked you about the COPS grant, because I know that we approved the COPS grant and folks would be hired that were new and not previously in Fund 31. And a sergeant was hired. Where do we find the that COPS grant is actually costing us? Yeah, I mean, I could read what you wrote me, but
Sure. So the officer is budgeted in Fund 031 Police, and the revenue will be a general fund revenue. The grant revenue coming in.
So this year it's more of a revenue, but there's still an expenditure. Is there an expenditure yet, or does that come up in like 3 years?
No, the COPS grant supports a portion of the compensation for a position. It doesn't cover the entire compensation. So it's a partial support. It's and the grant lasts for 3 years, and I believe the sergeant was hired in May of this year, and it was approved through I believe the first budget amendment of the year.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about reducing construction permits and how that is working within the budget? Do you want me to ask like differently?
No, I recall what your question was. So the estimate for permit revenue is pulling back slightly next year. Our permit services folks, they believe, I mean, we are in a period of extremely robust construction, so they've been issuing a very high level of permits. And while we think that the level of activity is still going to be very strong next year, they believe it might pull back just slightly. And so that's why the forecast was reduced. We're not reducing fees, permit fees. In fact, our permit services staff are looking at our fees in comparison to our peer cities, and are going to be looking to make sure that they are on par. So it could be that you will see something coming forward that would actually raise our fees slightly, because they have not been raised in many, many years.
Okay, that's all I'm going to put you through right now.
Thank you. And I can get you the details on the police budget. I can't drill down all the way to the COET team tonight for you. Okay. So I'll just, I will provide council with that detailed information. And of course, you'll be getting the proposed budget books with all of the narratives by department and all of the budget allocations and all that great detail in a couple of weeks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Moore.
No, I appreciate the comments that all have made, and thank you. I have no further comments tonight. I just look forward to a deeper discussion, and appreciate the simplicity of, we have a choice as a city, either that we influence our legislature to raise our property tax increase to something that's reasonable, or we have to rely upon ourselves to do it to maintain the simple level of service. So it's just a simple equation. I'll keep saying it, you get tired of it, but thank you, Susie, for an amazingly detailed presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Roberts.
Thank you. Susie, thanks for the presentation and the details. I want to say that I really appreciated the comments regarding not continuing to defer maintenance. We just have done that for way too long, and we've known for a long, long time that we need to address a structural budget deficit, budget challenge. So I appreciated your report tonight. I appreciated those comments, and I appreciated the mayor's recognizing that we need to go to the voters with some changes to the structure and let our community weigh in on these. So I don't have anything to add to that. I will look forward to getting into the details of this, but I just thanks for all your good work, and thanks to you and the administration for helping us tee up these structural issues.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Vader.
Thanks, Council President. Susie, yeah, obviously great info, and maybe not always exciting info, but great info. And I guess one thing I just want to make sure we get emphasized to the public who are watching is the difference between the enterprise funds and the rest of the city budget. Obviously, I guess maybe in the form of a question, Susie, revenue that goes to enterprise funds, utility fees, et cetera, that stays with them. That doesn't go to fund the general city budget. I just want to make sure. Correct? Right?
Absolutely. That's correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure everybody has that straight. Other than that, no additional questions. And thanks for all the hard work in getting us back again to a balanced budget for next year. And wow, still daunting going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Toohey.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. And Susie, again, thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate how you deliver it in a very easy way to understand. We'll have more questions as we move forward with the book, but I did like Councilmember Vogel's idea, and I do support that with the jail fees being reduced, that we do put those funds into support services and other issues that we have on the street, because things are different, and we just need a lot more support out there for whether it's the co-ed team or social workers or whatever we come up with on a plan. It just we've really seen a real big uptick in the downtown area and outlying areas, and so I just really think we need to look long and hard at how much we're putting into those kinds of support services as we move forward. So anyway, thank you again, Susie.
Sure.
Appreciate
and
it.
we could also provide additional detail on those investments at future.
It would be great to have that separated out. I think
Sure.
we need to look at that for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't have any specific questions at this time. I just want to say thank you, Susie, for all the hard work that the presentation is one thing, but it's all the work that goes into the presentation that I know is happening behind the scenes. So thank you for all that. And we'll look forward to getting that budget binder and working through the process with you and the rest of the administrative team. And so with that,
if I can, I would just like to thank Ran and Wei and E for all of their hard work, because it certainly takes a whole team to put this thing together.
Totally understand that. So thank you to all who contributed. We are now at the end of our meeting agenda and don't have an executive session this evening. As noted at the start of the meeting and provided on the city's website and hopefully on the screen now, we have ways for the public to engage with us. If you would like to to listen, watch, or participate in our weekly meeting, please contact Deb Williams in the council office. She can be reached at 425-257-8703 or by her email at dwilliams@everettwa.gov. You can always email the council as every one of us receives an email if you send it to council@everettwa.gov. And that's all we have for this evening. Thank you. And with no further business, we are now adjourned.